When you leverage and use OPM, returns can be infinite. In this episode, I'm going to answer the question, what is a good real estate investment return? And you're going to be surprised why many people who own real estate think they're earning a great rate of return, but it's pretty pathetic. So I'm Doug Andrew, and I've been a financial strategist, retirement planning specialist for 46 plus years. I've been blessed to have several best-selling books. And in all of my books and education and on this YouTube channel, my passion is to give you insights into opportunities that maybe you did not know existed before. So I've counseled a lot of high net worth real estate investors and some people that were just starting out. And when they want me to help them understand what is a good real estate investment rate of return, I go, well, they can be infinite. And they go, what? What do you mean by that? Okay. So let's go back to how money really works 101. There are four basic things you can do with money. You can spend it, you can lend it, you can own with it, or you can give it away. Now, I've always double dipped. I own and I loan on the same assets, and I earn incredible infinite rates of return. And people go, what? Now, a lot of people think that if you buy a piece of real estate, a rental property, and you have positive cash flow, that you should take that extra rental income and hurry and pay off the mortgage, and then you can sit back and collect the rental income. That's the lowest rate of return when you do that. And many times I've come across people who had their properties paid off, and I'm going to share a story of a widow who owned a commercial building when her husband passed away in an accident, and she sat on that commercial property, and the rate of return on the rental income was pathetic, especially when you take into consideration it was free and clear of any mortgage. When she learned what to do, we dramatically increased her rate of return. But going back to how money really works 101, a bank, a credit union, an insurance company, okay, these financial institutions, when you put money into them, it's in a lended position. Do you understand that? Okay. Are they just a benevolent institution paying you interest? No. What are they doing with your money? It doesn't sit in some vault. They are loaning it back out again, or they invest it again. So what have banks been paying for the last 10, 20 years? As of the recording of this video, a pretty pathetic 1%. Every million that we loan them, they pay $10,000 a year in interest. And what do they do with the million? Now, they turn around and they loan it back out again many times at 4 and 5%. How much more is 5 than 1? Don't say 4, it's 500% more. I often say, come on, would you hire an employee for $10,000 that made you an extra $50,000? That's a 500% return on employment cost. Would you buy a widget machine for 10 grand that made you an extra 50 grand? That's a 500% return on equipment cost. Any business owner understands that. So when people say, so what is the rate of return when banks do that? And I go, well, it's actually infinite. It's not 500%. It would be 500% if they used their money, but they're not using their money. They're using OPM, which stands for other people's money. So when you own or control assets with very little or none of your money tied up or at risk in that asset, the rates of return are infinite. You cannot calculate the rate of return because you did not invest any of your money. You used OPM. And so whatever rate of return you get can be infinite because you did not tie up any of your money. And that's how banks and credit unions make infinite rates of return. But I'm going to blow you away with what I'm going to tell you next. So if this is intriguing you, I would encourage you to subscribe and hit the bell so you'll be notified whenever I share a video, because I have lots of education on these topics. So when a bank or credit union, again, borrows our money at 1%, every million, okay, they bring in. And then if I go in there to borrow $1 million to build a new home, Now, they will maybe loan me that money at 4, 5, or 6%, but as they do that, it's more than just the 5 or 6% because they loan me the money, let's say 5%. So that's 5 times what they're paying for that money, and they have to deduct their overhead and costs and so forth, but they make 2 or 3% maybe if they're lucky. Now, a lot of people say, you'll do all that for 2 or 3%. No, it's 200, 300% more than the cost of the funds. And it's an infinite rate of return because they're not even using their money. But let me tell you the velocity of that money. I take the $1 million that I borrow, and what do I do with that? I pay the general contractor. I pay the subcontractors, or the general does. I pay all the suppliers. And what do they do with that million? They loan it back to the bank. They put the money back into their bank and earn 1. And the banks loan it out at 5. They get it back at 1. They loan it back at 5. Guess how many times a year? They churn that $1 million, an average of 17 times a year. They're making 300, 400, 500%, 17 times on the same money every year. That's called the velocity of money. You can become your own banker more conservatively and safely than the banks do. And I'm going to share with you how you can do that. But when you want to calculate a rate of return or consider what is a good real estate rate of return, I would say infinite by keeping it leveraged, keeping your money liquid. But I think what you also want to know is, how do you buy real estate and calculate the rate of return based on rental income and appreciation? So get ready for me to explain that calculation. So one example I like to give to help you understand this is we have several clients in the San Francisco Bay Area, and some of them have homes and properties they've owned for years. One couple in particular has a home that they bought for $230,000 40 years earlier to raise their family in, and now that they're empty nesters, this home has appreciated to $4.8 million, and they decided to rent it. And they were renting it for 10 grand a month, and they thought, wow, look at this, 10,000 a month. 10,000 a month times 12 months equals 120,000. Divide 120,000 into a home worth 4.8 million, and it will tell you it's a pathetic 2.5% annual rate of return. That is ridiculous, which means the house really isn't worth 4.8 million, it's inflated. Or if it really is worth 4.8 million, why don't you bring it in line with a lot of other cities like Memphis or Orlando, where 5-bedroom home is worth 300,000 and it rents with a multiplier of 1% a month, 3,000 a month. That home in Palo Alto should be renting for 48 grand a month if it was like homes in Memphis and Orlando. And so you calculate rate of return, first of all, by dividing the net. You really need to take the net after any property managers take their portion. And you divide that into the value of the property. And they had never thought of that before. They thought 10,000 a month. Look at that. No, it was only 2.5% rate of return. That's ridiculous. Inflation's greater than that. And so what they did is they sold that house. They bought a new house twice that size in a retirement community in another state for $800,000. And they took the remaining equity and they did 1031 tax-free exchanges into 13 homes in cities like Memphis and Orlando. And they changed their $10,000 a month to over $40,000 a month of income. They 4 times their cash flow. But also, you calculate rate of return with the appreciation. These 13 homes in those cities are now appreciating $300,000. They will double in value to $600,000 faster than the home in Palo Alto at $4.8 million will double to $9.6 million, I assure you. So you want to calculate rate of return by the cash flow and from the appreciation over the time. And you can always calculate how your house is going up in value. And you can use formulas like the rule of 72. If your house doubles in value and it took 8 years, 8 into 72 means you were earning an average appreciation of 9%. That's pretty good. So most of the time we help our clients analyze what is the cash flow rate of return. And then when you flip it or you sell it, in 4, 5, 6, 7 years, which normally we recommend people do that. Then they were able to sell the house that they bought for $300,000 for $450,000 or $500,000 if you choose the right markets. And now the combined rates of return on their money, if they paid cash, is more like 20, 24%. Many times it's over 20%. But if they leveraged it, if they used OPM, if they used 100% of somebody else's money, which is what I do, the rates of return are infinite because you can't calculate it if you didn't use any of your money. Is this making sense? Now, before I connect the dots, if this has aroused curiosity and you're going, whoa, I would encourage you to type in questions below and search on this channel. I have hundreds of videos that answer specific questions about these very topics, okay? Now, let me tell you about this widow. She inherited from her husband when he passed away his clinic because he was a physician. It was a commercial property, but it wasn't in a very good area of town, and she just hung on to it sort of for nostalgic purposes. And she let her children live in this place because it was close to the university where they attended. But the rate of return on keeping that commercial property for what it was worth was absolutely ridiculous. And when she finally came to her senses and she realized, you know what, this is an asset just sitting there dormant doing nothing, we were able to take that property, sell it, and do 1031 exchanges, and she was able to acquire several acres in a city where she's going to build a home. She was also able to buy 3 rental properties in Memphis, Tennessee, and all of a sudden the cash flow on those generated thousands of dollars a month of extra income that she had not been experiencing before because she was able to liquidate a non-performing property. It couldn't even rent to other physicians. She just needed to get rid of it. They needed to tear it down and build something else. And she was able to take that lazy, idle asset and put it into rental homes where she's getting 1% a month, and then the appreciation. She's only had these other properties now for about 2 years, and they're already worth about 40% more than she paid for them. When we finally turn those properties over, we add that on top of the rental income. Her rates of return are going to be between 25 to 30% annual rates of return. So that's how you consider if a real estate investment is a good rate of return. You take the rental income, and I would approach more like a 1% a month rent multiplier if you can find cities that will do that, because they exist. And you can hire a property management company and still, after their fees, net 10% annual rates of return instead of 2 or 3%. But then on top of that, you schedule when you're going to turn the property over and sell it, and you calculate, because of the area, the appreciation that's going to take place on that property. When you combine it all together, I would recommend you look at properties where if you paid cash, your rate of return is in the 20 to 30% annual rate of return range. If you use OPM, you can get up to infinite rates of return by doing that also. So I want to gift a book to you absolutely free. It's my 11th book. It's called The Laser Fund. It's actually 2 books in one. This side is about 200 pages, 14 chapters with all kinds of charts and graphs explaining concepts like this one. If you flip it over, this book is for right brain people. It's about 100 pages, 12 chapters with 62 actual client stories like these that I've been sharing with you. If you want to use your whole brain, you read both books. So I'll tell you what, if you go to laserfund.com, I'll pay for the book. You contribute $5.95 toward the shipping and handling. I'll cover the rest. You can also have options there to listen and learn and watch and learn. And I encourage you to watch other educational videos on this channel, but claim your free copy of The Laser Fund.